Hey everybody, welcome back to HU Flow here on the H Enrichment page. As always, for your host, it's Steven, it's Marilyn, and also now we're joined here today by someone who is very special to my heart. He is a teacher at Mastery Charter Shoemaker Campus, high school that I attended a very long time ago. His name is Joshua Bargiband, and he is on the podcast today. Josh, welcome to HU Flow, my friend.
Great to be here, Steve. Thanks for having me.
No problem. So I'll kind of start it off by first just asking you about, in a nutshell, what made you want to become a teacher? I know it's a pretty broad question, but it's always something to start off.
Um, well, that's a pretty deep question for me. It's a rather personal reason I became a teacher. Actually, growing up as a kid, I didn't have the most consistent home life. I moved around a lot. My parents were divorced when I was young. I lost my mom at a young age, and without having consistency, it was tough home life. But one place where I always found success and I always had a good time and just found very connected to was school and my teachers like Miss Quimby and Miss Milbit. I forged a lot of really close relationships with my teachers who kind of showed me the way, so to say. And I started tutoring when I was like a junior and senior year, and I just found that I really enjoyed it. I found a love for math specifically. I enjoyed doing math, but there's something about like watching somebody else get it after I explained it to them that was just, it felt even better than getting it myself. So I kind of pursued that, and now we're here we are. So I just kind of want to be, what my teachers were to me, I wanted to be for other students. And yeah, that's kind of where it took me.
That's cool. You've done a very awesome job of that, and I'm an example of that. So kind of just like let's start from the very beginning. So, what was life like for you growing up as a kid? So two questions in that. First, where are you originally from, and how was life growing up for you there?
I'm originally from the eastern shore of Maryland, which is in the middle of nowhere. You look in front of the high school I went to, you see a cornfield. You look in back of the high school I went to, you see a soybean field. We literally had classes on agriculture classes and how to take care of livestock. And so it was, very different from where I am now in Philadelphia, but just a very small town mentality. You knew everybody, and see anybody walking on the street, you knew who that person was. And yeah, so I grew up very small town, but that was high school. I moved around a lot as a kid. I've lived in, Delaware. I've lived in other places, parts of Maryland. I did a lot of moving, but I always stayed consistently, like in a consistent area, even though I was moving a lot. So I was luckily able to maintain a lot of friends over the years, who I still talk to today. But yeah, kind of grew up small town and then came out here to Philadelphia to go to school, St. Joe's, baby.
Okay.
Um, and then I met my now fiance, and the rest is history. I've been teaching at Mastery Shoemaker since I taught Stephen my first year, actually. My very first year. I was fresh out of college, like 22, 23 years old. He had no clue. He thought I was like 35, 40 years old. But
That's true.
the rest is history. I've been here ever since, loving every day.
Yep. Marilyn, he taught basically when at my age right now. And it's very interesting thinking about that. I remember in class, we always try to figure out how old you are because we all thought you were just way older than what you said. And you would make games out of us trying to guess your age. He would laugh at us. And we're like, oh, okay, we're not going to get it, obviously. So it's fine. But, especially we played roles in this being part of his life. And, him teaching us, a lot of us really benefited from him, and just not just in math, but in life, I think. So it goes far. And also, especially with your fiance, I remember when all those years ago when you were trying to make that little idea you had to propose to her, and you showed it to us and in the back of your class, and we're like, man, this is gonna be crazy when it happens. And that is just stuff like that. The little things really show the connection you made as a teacher and the connection you just made to us. So you didn't have to tell us about that, but you did because you were making that connection, and we appreciate that. So one more question before I pass on to Marilyn. So now you made it damn sure to show that St. Joe's is your spot. Okay, see, I don't got an HU shirt because we don't got merch, but it's fine. Um, it's fine. Um, but talk to us about your college life. How was like St. Joe's for you? Tell us about in a nutshell how that experience for you. How did it teach you about things that you're probably doing now in life?
Well, when I was in high school, I hesitate to give too many details, but I was quite the procrastinator in high school, and I'd never really stayed particularly on top of my work. At the risk of sounding arrogance, I got by just on smarts. Um, and college, therefore, was a big shock to me. As like that, I couldn't just get by on smarts. That I had to actually like put in the work and stay organized and carry around a weekly planner so that I know what I'm doing on Tuesday and Wednesday and Thursday. And that was like a big change in my life. And I struggled freshman year because of that. And I struggled with the freedom of time and the freedom of choice. And that was tough. I tried to procrastinate and I'd pull a bunch of all-nighters and I end up with a C on a paper. And I'm like, I don't understand. I do this all the time and I get A's. What's happening now? So that was a big shock for me. And I had to learn pretty quickly. I actually had to drop a class freshman year and re-enroll in it. But I mean, luckily I came in with some AP credit so I could kind of make up for that mistake with credit from an AP class in high school. But yeah, I learned really quickly that being smart isn't enough to be successful in college. Work ethic is by far more important than being smart, because you get to a certain, everybody's smart. Everybody's in college, almost everybody's smart. You might have the edge in a couple of places, but really it's work ethic that puts you ahead. So that was tough. And it was hard to decide between, it's Thursday night, it's Friday night. I got some friends who want to go out. I mean, I was kind of broke in college, but, there are a lot of choices where it's like, I could have fun right now, or I could put in the work that I need to. And, I'd say 7, 8 times out of 10, the decision should be work. When you're younger, maybe 9 times out of 10, it was whatever, I'll do the homework later. But now 9 times out of 10, no, let's do the work now. Let's get it done. Play hard, but work harder.
Gotcha. I mean, you're hitting a lot of special facts. I mean, a lot of the guests we had over time, when we asked them about their work ethic in college, or just like how they approach college with classes, it's a little bit up and down. Some are like, I should have taken more things like smarter, but I didn't because I'm thinking about this other perspective. A lot of our guests are from our university, so we see our perspective on like since we're a small university, everyone just like how you know everyone back at your back home. It was like you're either hanging out with your friends or you're hanging out in your dorm all day by yourself, and it's like one or the other. Um, but it's still interesting enough to hit on, especially with your college experience. I think that's really important to know that, guys, even though you're doing this stuff in high school, it doesn't work out all the time in college. So keep that in mind. With that being said, I'll pass it on to Marilyn.
So, so we have a unique situation here is you did not go to Harrisburg University. Now, most of the time we're able to ask our guests, why'd you pick HU? What led you to coming to our college? But in this case, you went to a totally different university. So for you, why did you decide upon the school that you did?
Financial package, honestly, was a major part. And I wanted to be away from home, but not away from home. So St. Joe's was about 2 hours away from my hometown. So when I was at school, I was away from home. I was at school, but I wasn't like, on the West Coast where if I want to get home, I have to pay $300, $400 for a plane ticket. And I have to actually I can go home whenever I want to. It was in that vicinity, but I still felt like I was away and, like on my own, making my own decisions. But um, apart from that, financial aid was a big factor for me. They thank God, God's blessing. St. Joe's was able to offer me a very good financial package, and they had a 5-year program for a master's in secondary math education, And like I said, I knew since like a junior, senior year of high school that I wanted to be a math teacher. So to have a school in that vicinity, the size that it was, the financial aid that they were able to offer, um, was just kind of like a home run for me. And like I said, I met my fiance, and now I'm here, loving life.
Perfect. What better way than to meet the love of your life at college? I know it's like a lot of people's dream. So, to your students, you are a math teacher, but we know that teachers can be so much more than just the subject that they teach. I know plenty of my teachers have given me like great life advice. So, would you say that you play a role in your students' lives where you're able to offer them advice for life after high school?
I certainly hope so. I mean, I always thought it was just awesome that Steve and Ryan and Janelle, like they would always come back to visit. And I think like that's really like that's my favorite part about being a teacher is that, you know, you build these relationships with kids, not just in the sense of like, let me disseminate knowledge to you, let me teach you math, but like, let me let's build connections and realize our value to each other. And just the fact that Steve and Ryan and Janelle and like there's so many others just come back all the time to visit, and the fact that I'm sitting here with Steve right now is like blowing my mind, and it's just so awesome, to see kids come back and to see them successful and to feel, I mean, I don't know for sure if I played a part in that, but to feel like, hey, maybe I did, play a part in that is just it's a blessing. Like, it's unbelievable. So absolutely, teachers are more than just disseminators of knowledge. You know, we build relationships. That's really what it's about, is building relationships. And, you know, academic knowledge, just as important as social knowledge and emotional knowledge, all the knowledges that a teacher can give. I aspire to do that. I don't know if I do the best job of it, but I certainly aspire to do that.
Now, for me, math was never my favorite subject, but I still do love hearing about what people enjoy. So, even though you're a math teacher and you teach like all different varieties of math, do you have one aspect of it that is your absolute favorite?
Geometry and calculus. Um, I think calculus is my favorite to do. Geometry is my favorite to teach. It's just geometry is so different from any other maths. You're not just solving equations and looking at graphs, but like it really teaches you the thinking, like how to think, how to, use deductive reasoning. And another reason why I really enjoy geometry is because it lends itself to such hands-on things. Like you can do things, you can build things, and it just, there's so many different places in life where geometry pops up, whether you're a construction worker, you need to figure out an angle of you're building a house and you got to figure out how do I angle this roof right, or you're a lawyer, how do I make an evidence-based argument to prove something. There's just so many ways that geometry pops up. It's just very versatile, and it gives a lot of kids who maybe are like you and are like, man, I just really don't like math, this new sense and this new taste of math where it's like, you know what, this is fun, and I can use this, and I can do math, not just learn it, but actually do it. We recently started, unfortunately, because of the pandemic that just passed, I wasn't able to do it last year, but and Steve, just my first year starting out, I couldn't get this project organized for you, but we've recently been doing this bridge project where we go and we learn about bridges, and we take a field trip out into Philadelphia, and we go study bridges and arch bridges and truss bridges, and we go look at these things, and then we come back and we build popsicle stick bridges, and we have this competition of who can build the best one, and who holds the most weight and whose is the best looking. It's just a lot of fun to get hands on math and not just sitting in a seat looking at the board. you know it's geometry is pretty awesome. If you can't tell, I'm excited about it. I don't know what else to do. Geometry is the best, hands down.
I mean, you're definitely excited about it. That'd be great. So, back over to Steven for more.
Yeah, I remember. I think my last year, you guys were starting that out because I remember you guys were talking about the bridges. So that was like, oh wow, that's kind of cool. And I'm happy kids are going to do something like that. Um, So, to kind of talk really about the high school work you're doing now, how did you end up working at Mastery Charter? How'd your path lead there?
I, that's what I'm saying. I count my blessings every day. I got so lucky when I was at St. Joe's. I was going into my student teaching, and I was actually stationed here at Mastery Shoemaker with Steve Rinaldi and Naima Seward, if you remember them.
Yeah.
And so I did my student teaching with them, and they were awesome co-op teachers. And I applied for a job here, and thank God I was accepted, and I've been teaching here ever since, and it's been a blessing.
I mean, that's pretty dope because, when you first came, I think you were student teacher to one of them. And then it was just like all of us trying to figure out, like, is he actually going to teach here or not? And then the next year you came and you started teaching. And then it was just like, oh, this guy went from just this random person we saw in the classroom to now our math teacher is teaching us about why shapes and these numbers alongside of it make sense if you really just think about it deeply. Because one thing you did teach us about math is like, you could give us the answer, but would we really care if you didn't make us understand why it's so important to know why the answer makes sense? So I think that was really something important that you taught us, and that's what teachers do. They teach you something, but also that connection they make with you is just also just as important. So, you know, so my next question is: you've been doing this now for about, if I'm correct me if I'm wrong, about 7 years, then?
Yeah, this is my eighth year. Yeah.
So, this obviously this year is different because of the pandemic. So how has the pandemic kind of affected teaching? Because I know online teaching at a college level has been mixed results for some of our guests. How about a high school level?
Well, it's certainly been hard. And like I said, teaching, being a teacher, as much as it is about academic and disseminating knowledge, it's about social and emotional connections and building relationships. And there's something to be said, like something as small as a daily high five in the hallway is a big deal, in a kid's development, and, building that relationship and having that face-to-face interaction where, I can see your face and I can see like, hey, you seem off today. What's going on? Are you okay? Like, talk to me a little bit. Let's figure this out. Let's get you set so you can, be in a good headspace to get some academic learning done. And that is so difficult now when you're virtual and cameras are off and you can't see kids faces and you can't give that high five. And that it changes a lot. It changes a lot. And that's just like on the social emotional side of things. It's also hard to sit in front of a computer screen for hours and hours at a time to learn academic stuff too. Like, you're when you're in the classroom and you have a chance to stand up and walk to go sharpen your pencil, like that 10-second micro break is a big deal. And you don't have that in the virtual setting. Um, Time is lost to trying to figure out technology. Like, how do I now, when I plan for teaching, I have to plan what sort of fun engagement strategy can I give to get kids thinking about this? Is really like typing in chat, is that really fun? Like, not really. How can I get these kids' brains activated? It's hard. It's definitely hard. And I will be the first to say, and I honestly, the kids are not learning anywhere near as much as they would if we were sitting in a classroom setting. It sucks, but I mean, what are you going to do? We're in the middle of a pandemic right now.
Right. I mean, it's at a college level when we hear about it, it's like kids are trying to figure out whether they want to just take a year off or just battle through it because they don't want to graduate late, or it's just like the balance between classes and work for a lot of them, especially if they have family members you need to take care of. We hear about that perspective a lot, but then also at a high school level, we're generally just concerned about kids learning in general. Like, are they actually going to get something? Is there going to be a gap year for them? Especially for those who are transitioning to college, it's like, they're learning something that probably is going to be enough for them to survive in college. So I know it's kind of a fear, but hopefully, they're getting something out of nothing. I know this situation is great for no one involved, but you guys are doing the best you can. So I mean, I'm happy to hear that it's honestly it's not working at all that well, but you're at least trying. I think that's the end of the day. We can look back and say we did that. Um, so to kind of add on to the question, because I know you teach, if I recall, 10th graders, right?
Combination of 10th and 11th, mostly 11th.
Mostly 11th. Okay. So, when I say like the potential of a gap year, what I mean by that is basically kids not having the full knowledge they could have got if it was in person. Do you believe that's more of a possibility now, more than ever since the pandemic, or do you believe that maybe there's some chance to get something out of it?
Do you mean like where you take a year in between graduating from high school and going to college?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's perfectly reasonable. I also think like I've been the narrative in America for a long time has been go to college, go to college, go to college, go to college. If you don't go to college, you're a loser. And I think that's unfortunate because there's so many good jobs out there. Electricians and plumbers and auto mechanics and masons. They can make great money working with their hands. You don't necessarily have to go to college and just to plug geometry again. It's a great place to learn how you can work with your hands to do those things. When you say a gap year, I would envision somebody going out and getting a job, maybe an apprenticeship, where they're training to be an electrician. And I think that'd be fantastic. Um, so yeah, I think gap year, if you're gonna do it, go for it. I know I personally, if I were to do virtual learning at college, I would have a hell of a time. That would be hard. Um, Maybe take a gap year, make a little bit of money, do an apprenticeship, try an internship. Maybe find so many kids go off to college they don't even know what they want to do, that's okay. But maybe spend that year, like figure out what you want to do, dedicate yourself to like, I'm just going to take a year and figure out what I want to do. That way when I go to college or a trade school, I can fully commit to that instead of being in this kind of like drifting around land. Like first 2 years of college, I don't really know what I want to do, so I'll just take all the prerequisite courses and then decide from there. I think a gap year would be great.
Gotcha. I mean, that makes sense. I mean, there's gap years have more benefits than people realize, but it's like that mentality that we created culture, like high school, college, and you're set. No, it's not. A lot of people who graduate, especially around the pandemic, they're not set. They're working jobs they don't want to do, but they need to make money, so it's understandable. And no disrespect to them, but sorry out here for everyone. With that being said, Marilyn, do you have any more questions you would like to ask Josh?
I do. So we've touched on the pandemic and how that is taking a toll on everybody, students and teachers. One thing I hadn't really thought of, I went to a cyber online school for high school. So I've always been educated online. I never went to public school. Um, so it hadn't really occurred to me that from your perspective, you're seeing that students really are learning less in the classroom. That was very insightful. But again, the pandemic, you as a professor not being able to interact with your students and your fellow teachers around you as much, how is that impacting your mental health if you feel comfortable talking about it?
Um, I don't know. I don't know how much it's affecting my mental health. I think I'm in a pretty good situation. My fiance is a teacher as well, actually, and she's I still come to the school building every day, like in order to help with that mental health. Like I need a place of work, and so I'm thankful that I can come into the school building. She can't go into the school building, for example, so she's spending hours and hours and hours at home in a space that's typically like when you're at home, that's your like relaxed space. That's your chill. That we don't have work to do. So like I can see why people would have a really tough time mentally at home, constantly doing everything virtually. And that's why I say maybe I'm not struggling with that so much because I come into work still every day because I need that. Like, this is my workspace. This is where I do work. And when I leave this space, I'm taking care of other things. I'm going home and I'm doing things at home. So I'm lucky to have this workspace because it keeps me mentally sane. I'm sure it keeps my fiance mentally sane too. She doesn't have to listen to me yelling and screaming at the computer screen all day.
Yeah, definitely. I think one of the things that we've all realized is the need for a routine and then like set spaces for our different tasks. What do you say to your students when you find that they might be struggling with math and you can't help them in the same way that you would in the classroom?
I'd say that although I might not be able to help them the same way as I could in a classroom, but there's still lots and lots of opportunities for help. Um, I mean, I give my personal phone number to all my kids. I give them my email address. I say, call me, get a hold of me. We have advisory sessions. We have office hours. We have all these opportunities for, kids to take advantage of teachers who want to help them and, are here for it. Unfortunately, some kids don't take advantage of those things, and they kind of brush it under the rug. And I think that's where I don't congratulations on all of high school. That's impressive to me. Certainly wouldn't be able to do it. And I don't think I'm the only person in that boat. Um, but I might ask you, like, were you the type of student who would go to the teachers and say, hey, I need help? Or were you the kind of student who was like, if I get it, I get it. If I don't, I don't, whatever.
Um, well, when you were talking about just kind of brazing by on like smarts and stuff, that's kind of me, and that's still kind of
Yeah, yeah. I'm gonna say, don't do it. We went to college together, so don't do it.
Yeah, Stephen will know. He'll be like, "Oh, do you study?" And be like, "What? What is that?" And then walk out of the class like aced it. Like, I'm not a genius or anything like that, but I just developed my ways of learning where I knew it would be good enough. So that was me in high school and a little bit of college. But yeah.
Yeah, I think not everybody's as lucky to be able to, get through like that. I know was certainly lucky. But it's also like knowing when to ask for help and taking it upon yourself to go ask for help. That's a skill. That's a skill. To like have it. It takes courage. A lot of people are embarrassed to do it, and I think that's a situation that some of our kids are running into. Is like, I don't want to go ask for help because I don't want to feel like I'm stupid. Like if I ask for help, that means I'm stupid, and that's just so not the case.
Going to ask for help, because I would have like certain teachers that I was close with that are like, hey, what does this mean? But then in high school, or no, in college, I wasn't really sure what as much was, especially transitioning into a new environment and all that sort of stuff. So I had to be like, okay, professional email, how do I ask for this sort of thing? But you definitely need to do that if you have any sort of questions, or you will be lost.
It really comes back to the conversation we were having earlier about work ethic. It's like, you can't get by on smarts all the time. And part of work ethic is saying, I'm going to take a half an hour right now to go seek out the help that I need. And it's scary. And sometimes it means emailing my professor or somebody who's, a professional that's my supervisor. And that's scary and also necessary.
Exactly. I couldn't agree more. Um, but those have been great conversation topics, work ethic, seeking help, and then your perspective as a teacher. So thank you so much for sharing that all with us. And back to Stephen, if for any more questions.
Yeah, I got one final question before we send it to Marilyn to send this out. So, what advice would you give to not just a student who's thinking about being a teacher? This is kind of a two-part question in one. So, what advice would you give to someone who wants to do something what you're doing? And then also, what advice would you give to people in general about life?
What advice would I give to somebody who wants to be a teacher?
Yeah.
Um, the first 2 to 3 years are rough. They are rough. Trying to get, you know, 13, 14, 16, 17-year-old kids to do what you want them to do, that's hard. And you're going to have days when you come home and, for a lot of people, you're 9 to 5, 5 o'clock hits, you're done. That's it. For a teacher, you go home and you work another 3, 4 hours, making sure your lesson's right, making sure this is right, that is right. And that's hard. So just understand that in your first year, it's, your first couple of years, it's tough. And it gets easier as you go because you start to pick up on more and more tools and strategies that, you realize you learn in those first 3 years, this works and this doesn't. So let me keep doing this and let me stop doing that. um, so teachers, be ready. Your first couple of years are going to be tough, and that's okay. Reach out to your reach out to your other teachers for support. That's a big thing I could say is reach out to your other teachers for support, for resources, for strategies, behavior strategies, pedagogical strategies, and throwing all these fancy words out now. And then what was your other question, Steve? Advice
What
for
advice, basically, what advice would you give someone just about life in general? Like, what is something you've learned about life that you can tell someone now that maybe they can benefit from learning that?
Surround yourself with the right people. Um, surround yourself with people who work hard, who complain every once in a while, but that's not their main MO. Everybody needs to complain, but really you need people who are problem solvers, who are motivators, who are, this sucks and we're going to get through it. Like, we'll be okay. If you have the right voices in your ear, you'll do just fine. If you have the wrong voices in your ear, you'll start to sink and you'll start to feel bad, and nobody wants to do that. So surround yourself
Right.
with the right people is the advice I give.
Hey, that's the best advice though. I mean, that's advice that help a lot of kids in college specifically. Not just to say that. I mean, literally, people, just surround yourself with the right people. You'll make it out just fine. Well, that being said, Marilyn, send us out, my friend.
All right. Thank you guys for tuning in to another episode of our podcast here at HU Flow. This has been Teachers Edition. So as always, I'm your host, Marilyn Spencer, and we have Stephen Gayle. And today we heard from Josh. So thank you guys for listening. And if you want to hear more, follow us down below. Otherwise, have a good day.
Later, guys.